7 characteristics, if you will, of successful people, and I'm probably speaking more to those who are new distributors as opposed to the seasoned ones who are applying this anyway. Lessons in leadership. I've been blessed to see and work with a number of people from Generals Norman Schwarzkopf. Did not get a chance to host the leadership series that Secretary General Powell was there. Morgan Wooten, my high school coach who is in the Basketball Hall of Fame. My now deceased Bishop Pastor Clarence Givens. John Wooden of UCLA fame, who I happen to think is one of the outstanding resources that we have in this country and ought to look to for leadership, a man who embodies all of what is right as far as sports is concerned and how he lives. I've had the blessing to work with a number of those people plus. And I've taken notes from all of these successful people to try and apply them throughout my life. And you know what? They're really extremely basic fundamentals. So much so you might even say they're kind of trite, so elementary. But as I've learned, simple is best, simple is effective, simple is proven. My high school coach says, JB, there's no such thing as new fundamentals. The fundamentals that applied yesterday apply today. And even with the higher levels of education and training that you're getting at the National Success School or whatever from some seasoned distributors, the fundamentals are still applicable. Michael Jordan, for all that he was in basketball, all of his histrionics and high-flying acrobatics, certainly would not have been as good a player as he was without the basics. So with those in mind, let me just share with you those things, those notes that I've taken. Number one, good communication skills. Effective, necessary in the sales environment for sure. Good communication skills. Very basic, very real. And certainly up under communication skills, writing, speaking, and listening. And I've learned in sales and in the media environment that the most critical of those three, the listening skills. Certainly, you know, in working with potential customers, you've got to hear what's important to them so that you can speak to that. When you go to buy a car, heavens, a salesperson could come out with a manual of 1,000 pages, but to go through all 1,000 pages is not effective, because if in fact you stress 3 elements that are most important in the buy-in decision for you, that's what's important. Communication skills. Being able to articulate the King's English. Now, I say that because I grew up in a family where we didn't sit at the dinner table together to talk about all of the success elements to prepare me for the game of life. I had very hard-working Christian parents, make no mistake about it, God bless them. But what they did tell me was to learn to be able to speak well, and you would be rewarded later in life. And to articulate clearly. Very important in the sales environment. Now, one experience that happened to me that underscored that, I remember when I was working my way up to become hopefully a broadcaster at the network level. I got a major college basketball game that was a semi-national game. Big time opportunity, because I'd started out first with the then Washington Bullets, did some college basketball games with Black Entertainment Television, did some regional games with a regional syndicator, finally got this opportunity to do a network game. And I'm working with this big time announcer. Won't call his name because he's still in the business. And man, I tell you what, I was working hard, had all of my information together. This Georgetown game against St. John's up in New York City. All the bigwigs in the media capital of the world were looking at the game. So man, God, the game is going well, and I'm just, spewing out my facts and information that I'd studied so well. And we got to one part of the game, Georgetown was down by 6 points. They got this substitute off the bench. He's coming into the game. I said, this guy is an outstanding streak shooter. Now my partner said, excuse me, did you say streak or streaked? Now, I could have reacted stereotypically and pulled my switchblade out and got upset. But I didn't. So I said, you know what? Actually, either one of those adjectives applies. He's a great streak shooter because typically he comes in when they're down and he can nail 4 or 5 jumpers in a row to change momentum and put them ahead, and an outstanding street ball player because he learned his improvisational skills on the streets of Washington, D.C. He's multi-talented and multi-threat. That was the way to handle it, but I learned the lesson to articulate clearly so that all could hear. Having a good grasp of the King's English. Good communication skills. The second thing that I learned, most effective for me, that I've applied throughout the game of life, your dress and attire, certainly in your business, it is most crucial. Your dress and attire, it makes a statement about you before you even open your mouth. Being dressed business specific for the occasion that it is. Again, it says how you feel about yourself and what you think about yourself. No one told me this. I didn't know that. Even being blessed to go to a great school like Harvard, because I wanted to be prepared for the game of life, even having played basketball, nobody talked to me about why dress and attire was so important. And when I didn't realize my dream of playing professional basketball after being drafted by the Atlanta Hawks, thinking, hey, I'm finally going to realize my dream, get a good 10, 12 years under my belt, get enough capital together to move into some kind of entrepreneurial pursuit, I got cut from the team. So now I've got to go and interview. I'm going over to IBM. This big-time Harvard alum is sending me over to IBM for the interview. Well, I dressed the way I thought it was okay. I got this humongous afro sitting out about yay wide. Had so much hair on my head, I had to give Mrs. Regis the comb to kind of get the back of my hair. Had these thick mutton chop sideburns, had a velvet blue Bama bow tie on, powder blue shirt, plaid blue suit, thick stack heel shoes, and at the time the ball players are carrying these shoulder bags. I go into IBM and the guy looked at my resume and he said, okay, James Brown, Harvard University, 3.5 grade point average, Harvard Speakers Forum, captain of the basketball team. Boy, this is a pretty good candidate. He came out in the office and he saw me and he looked to his assistant and he said, where's James Brown? I stood up, here I is. He called me back into the office, and the only reason he talked to me was because he knew this big-time alum, and he said, son, let me tell you something. If I didn't know the alum who sent you here, I would have gone through a perfunctory interview and bounced you out of here in a New York minute, and you wouldn't have known. I'm saying, why? Why? Look at you. Did you take a look around at this environment to see that we're all dressed very neatly and conservatively, trimmed neatly, no facial hair? You got to make a decision. If this is the environment you want to play in, then you have to play by those rules. So I've probably gone radically to the other end now and dressed in shirt and tie in every occasion. As a matter of fact, when I was working at Fox NFL Sunday with Terry Bradshaw, Howie Long, and Jimmy Johnson, I would often invite them over to my house, but they would never come because they assumed that their evening attire was going to be a dinner jacket and an ascot, so they never came. But dress and attire is very important. Number 3, punctuality in the business for the new folks. Punctuality. And again, much like dress and attire, it makes the same statement. I understand that these are very basic and very fundamental, but crucial indeed in terms of what kind of aura you emanate, how people perceive you in terms of the body of these elements. Punctuality, critically important. Now, I must admit, being honest and transparent, I had to apologize to Bob and his wife and to the Gillespies and to Judy Bierroth and the rest because I was a little late coming downstairs this morning because of the late, that's an excuse. And my wife called me this morning. My wife wanted to pray and say happy birthday to me, so believe me, I got to go home to her. So I was late. Thank you very much. 25 years of age. But I did call Judy because I learned that if you know you're going to be late for some reason, call ahead of time, be responsible. Again, it's elementary, it's trite, it's basic, it's real. Punctuality says that I'm dependable, I'm reliable, I respect your time, and I want you to respect my time. Working with Jimmy Johnson probably helped me to learn the importance of that more than with anyone. Jimmy, the former Cowboys coach and Miami Dolphins coach, stickler for time. If the meeting is at 3 o'clock, Jimmy's there at 2:30. If the car is picking you up at 1, Jimmy's downstairs at 12:30. Drivers hated coming to get Jimmy because he was always a half hour, 45 minutes ahead of time. But that was Jimmy. And when he took over the Dallas Cowboys, one of the things that he said he had to do was to turn around and change the culture of losing and the attitude with the Cowboys. And one of the things he wanted to make sure of was that there was a responsibility that everyone had a sense of, and to be there on time. Jimmy was a stickler. Even the first year with the Cowboys, when they were 1-15, Jimmy was that way in terms of laying that foundational element. I'll never forget talking with Jimmy about the game they were preparing to play against the San Francisco 49ers. And Jimmy, again, was actually conducting the defensive strategy session with his team, and he was in the video room, and he was going through the video, and he's talking about, okay, we got Jerry Rice on the other end, so we're probably going to do is run a multiple defense. We're going to have, zone on one side of the field, man-to-man coverage over here, and we're going to roll the coverage. The meeting had already started, and his star linebacker came in the room late, slammed the door as he came in late. Jimmy tried to ignore it. He continued to talk about what the defensive strategy was going to be against the San Francisco 49ers. 5 minutes later, the guy is sitting near the front row, and he fell asleep in the meeting. Oh my gosh, with Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy cut the video off, turned the lights up, went over to the linebacker, and he said, son, shook him, he woke him up. He said, it's apparent we've been working you pretty hard here at these sessions. Tell you what, I know you need a lot of rest. I'm going to give you all the rest you need. You're fired. Go in there and clean your locker. Get out of here. Jimmy, you fired him right there on the spot. He did. Some of you might remember that. Fired him. I said, Jimmy, I understand the importance of stressing being on time and punctuality, but that was your star linebacker. What would you have done if that was Troy Aikman who fell asleep in the seat? Jimmy looked at me. What do you mean, what would I have done if it was Troy Aikman? I'd have gone over to Troy Aikman. I'd have shaken him and said, hey, you need this pillow to rest your head on a little bit here, comfortably. Said, high school coach talked about having the priorities as youngsters, being God first, then family, then school, then basketball or sports. God is real. For me, I know I speak from experience. I know that if you got that foundation in place, that everything else that's rooted firmly into that foundation, and those of you in the construction industry heavens, you know far more about this than I do, but I know this much as a layperson, that the taller the building, the deeper the foundation has to be. Many a tall building has come down because the foundation was not firm. It may look good on the outside to all those who don't know, but those of you who do know, that foundation has got to be solid, rock solid, and deep indeed. I maintain that if that piece is in place in terms of your relationship with God, that everything else that you deal with is a piece of cake. You'll be able to weather the storms, and you'll be able to enjoy what the Word calls good success. Because criminals can employ success principles, biblical principles, but good success is that kind of success that is eternal, where you can lay your head down at night and know that you've done things exceedingly well. And recognizing again the motto of this group here, knowing that you all possess a lot of these characteristics already, hopefully by the examples given from a different industry, you recognize that it will continue to feed, in a realistic sense, that motto of being strong, proud, and united. I thank you so very much for your time this morning, and I appreciate your patience very much.